good morning, everybody. So I hope you had a good weekend. I am headed right now to downtown Raleigh. I should tell you what I did over the weekend. So I had a pretty good day off on Saturday. Did a typical, when you have young kids, the nearly weekly kids' birthday party. Although this was a really fun one. It's actually some of my good friends from high school, and they're back in town now, living in the same city as us, and their kids are almost exactly the same age as ours, and the kids play great together, and they're just great people. So I actually had a really good time, unlike most little kid birthday parties, which are just another reason to spend more money on a gift for a kid that already has too many toys. But anyway, so on Sunday I actually worked a little bit. I went over to my dad's store and did some floor tunings. He's a big Yamaha dealer. He's got Busendorfer, Estonia, Schimmel. Oh gosh, what else has he got? Maybe that's about it right now. But anyway, I went over there. He got in a huge shipment of Yamahas, like 30 pianos or something. They're having a university sale that they're going to be doing down at East Carolina University, so he needed help getting pianos prepped. So I went in, and I was actually mostly focused on getting 3 or 4 pianos ready, a couple of which were sold and were going out. So I did that, and so it was good. Make a little bit extra money, pay for Christmas gifts, and so rested up a little bit yesterday afternoon. Got some paperwork done for the business, which is always my favorite part of business. Took care of some stuff I needed to do, and so this morning I'm headed into downtown Raleigh. Got a customer. He lives down in a condo, and he has a Fazioli 228, which is a pretty nice piano. One of the nicest pianos, honestly, that I tune. So before the Fazioli, he had a Steinway. It was a Steinway Model A, and that piano was a really nice piano as well. It was a relatively new piano, about 10 years old or so, and other than action noise, it was a really great piano. But when I started working on it, the first thing I noticed when I started playing was, boy, it was a lot of clicking. So bad that I thought maybe some hammers were unglued, because when you get a hammer that comes unglued from the shank, they'll make almost like a clapping noise when they hit the string. So a lot of notes were making this noise, and I thought, can't be that many hammers are unglued. So the further I looked into it, I noticed it was actually coming from the back checks. And it was during the era when Steinway hadn't switched over to using synthetic material. It's like a suede material or a buckskin that they use. And the back check is a little, gosh, how do I explain this? It's a catcher basically. So the hammer goes up to the string, bounces off the string, and then there's a little excuse me, gosh, got a frog in my throat. The back check grabs the hammer by the tail and holds it up closer to the string, which allows the jack to get back underneath easier and faster. So during that era, they were using natural buckskin, and I can tell you from using natural buckskin, we used to order it in whole hides, basically. It's a good material. It's very durable, but it's very hard to get back check material that is both uniform in thickness. Basically impossible. You can't get it uniform in thickness, and also it can tend to be a lot harder than the synthetic back check leather. The new stuff is called Xane, and it's also called Alcantara. So if you ever see like really high-end luxury cars will have like a suede headliner. Well, that stuff is Alcantara, and it's basically the same stuff, and it's great material. It lasts a really, really long time, and it stays soft. So that's really the nice thing about it, is it really, really, once you put it in, it doesn't tend to get really hardened and make a lot of noise. So anyway, he had I don't know how many technicians out, maybe 2 or 3 technicians before me, and he had mentioned the sound to him, and none of them said they heard anything that was abnormal, which I find really hard to believe. I think they just didn't want to dig any deeper to figure out what the problem was. So when I mentioned it to him that I had heard this sound, he was ecstatic, because, you know, it was the only thing that was keeping him from really loving his piano. So there was that. So the other issue with the piano was also a lot of drag in the key bushings. So the felt that lines the openings in the keys, there's a pin that goes up inside. It's like a guide for the key where it goes up and down. And sometimes what could happen is, I've seen this a lot in Steinways, the glue that they use to put key bushings in is hot hide glue. So it's a hot glue. It's essentially it's a natural glue, and the way you get it to the right thickness is that you pour warm water in it, basically hot water in it, and as you use it, it's evaporating. So the glue is constantly getting thicker, and then you have to dilute it back down. Well, sometimes it seems that they would dilute it back down, or they would just mix it too thin to begin with. And so what would happen is the felt, instead of the glue staying on the outside of the felt where it needs to be glued down, the glue would soak into the felt. And so then the felt, as it wears, you get into that glue, and so the glue is rubbing up against the metal pin, and it can create not only a lot of friction, but also a lot of noise. So his keys were, they were squeaking and making noise. It just felt, the action felt really, really uneven, especially when you played fast. So I took the action into the shop. I replaced the key bushings, I replaced the back check leathers, and he was just really, really happy. It took care of most of the problem. There's still some noise coming from the knuckles, because the knuckles are also made out of that buckskin. But we decided, you know, the back checks were the bulk of the issue, and it at least decreased it enough that it was tolerable for him. So anyway, so to go on to the next part, so he called me one day and said, "Hey, John, do you